Hi, this is Professor Favors with American Literature. So today's lesson is on Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, and we are only going to look at stanzas 1 to 20. So make sure to have your document out. You can access it online. The Song of Myself, if you type it in as a research target, you should find a PDF. For my class, however, you do have access to a link. So this is American Literature, Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, stanzas 1 to 20. So this lesson is subject to fair use because I am including the 20 stanzas within this presentation, but it is for teaching purposes. So um, there are also pics, two pics of Walt Whitman as well. So this is subject to fair use. All right, so let's look at Walt Whitman. His date ranges 1819 to 1892. And so here's a picture of him. And I'm just going to read this slide and the next slide. The second of 9 children and born in 1819 to a Long Island farmer and carpenter, Walt Whitman is both the journeyman poet of Americanness and its champion. A journalist and newspaper editor throughout his life, Whitman worked as a law clerk, a school teacher, a printer, a civil servant, and a hospital aide, but he was always writing. From his teenage years until his death, his byline was on constant view. Contemporary reports suggest that Whitman was an industrious worker, but that he was often accused of idleness because his habit of long midday walks contrasted sharply with 19th century attitudes toward work. In Song of Myself, Whitman addressed these critics directly by writing, I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. So the purpose of us only looking at 1 through 20, even though 21 through 52 might have the answer that we need. The only reason why we want to look at only 1 through 20 for Song of Myself is this idea here where Whitman is addressing his critics. He is being accused of idleness. He's being accused of idleness. Song of Myself is him addressing the critics. They're saying in a time of change, in a time of industry, in a time of work is important to us. 19th century attitudes towards work. He is being idle. So then the 52 stanza Song of Myself is his response to the critics. And that's why we're only going to look at 1 through 20 because 1 through 20 really gives us what we need. Okay. So when you are reading the 20 stanzas, Song of Myself, understand that everything that he is saying, line by line, stanza by stanza, is in a response to the critics who say he's idle within the context of 19th century attitudes toward work. All right, so for Whitman, too much industry dulled the ability to celebrate the ordinary. In the preface to the first edition of Leaves of Grass in 1855, Whitman expounds on his love for the common. Other states indicate themselves in their deputies, but the genius of the United States is not best or most in its executives or legislators, nor in its ambassadors or authors or colleges or churches or parlors, nor even in its newspapers or inventors, but always most in the common people. Whitman's love for the common people that he encountered and observed in the urban centers of the North is expressed in all his poetry. If his British contemporary Alfred Lord Tennyson is the national poet of mourning, then Whitman is the national poet of celebration. So, what you see here with Whitman, too much industry, too much industry dulled the ability to celebrate the ordinary. Every day there is a ordinary experience. And what he's suggesting here that all of these people who are about industry, and call it genius, right? So these are the folks who are business executives. These are the folks who are state, federal legislators. These are some of the people who are ambassadors, authors, colleges, churches, parlors, even newspapers or inventors. These are the people who are so busy with industry, and there's nothing wrong with industry in a sense that you still need to put your hands to work. But he was saying that people spent too much time in industry to the point that they missed the commonness of people, everyday ordinary living. And so again, Song of Myself is a response to the critics that you are spending too much time in industry. You're not celebrating the ordinary. You're calling yourself genius because of all these different categories, right? It's like a person listing all of their accomplishments on their resume. You do this, you do this, you do this, but there's some aspect of your life that you are missing out on. And that's what he wants to call attention to. All right, so let's look at some historical implications. Remember from the introductory PowerPoint lesson to the course um, on time periods, that every time you see something in terms of a time period 1819 to 1892, his his birth and death dates, and that's the 19th century. You want to look at what was going on during that time. Now, there's a lot more that's going on. I just only put here the most necessary, but let's look at it. So, 1819, we have the Panic of 1819, which is a financial crisis. Somewhere between here, we also had another financial crisis, somewhere like 1837. Thomas Jefferson founds the University of Virginia. So then we have different states becoming states, or different territories becoming states. So Maine and Missouri becoming a state. Florida becomes a U.S. territory. We also have Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, the presidents, dying on the same day, and then Andrew Jackson becoming president. We have Nat Turner's revolt, also slavery debates. We have Oberlin College beginning enrolling female students. This is a change in the dynamic of all men being able to go to college, right? And many of the institutions having to create uh, separate institutions for women, separate institutions for Black Americans. And so you're going to see this again in your final paper for this course on single sex colleges. And the title of that is Are Single Sex Colleges Obsolete? And so then 1845, we have Florida and Texas becoming states. Then we have the Mexican American War. What is interesting here is 1857 is kind of like a current issue that's going on today. But this was Dred Scott v. Sanford, and he sued based on the idea that he was free from slavery. And so slaves and blacks, um, the conclusion of the suit, the judge's decision, slaves and blacks descended from slaves were not American citizens and cannot sue. So then later we ended up having Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, Reconstruction era, assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Then the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship and equal protection under the law, meaning that we're not necessarily equal. It's a citizenship amendment, but it basically means that it's equal application of the law. So if men can go to college, women can go to college. If white people can go to college, black people can go to college. So it's equal application of the law. So now this is the industry aspect of um, Whitman's critique. 1865 to 1913, these were two major industrial revolutions. Then there was a global transition towards manufacturing, technological improvements, rapid economic growth in these areas here. So during the 19th century, where there's a heavy attitude towards work and industry, within this context here of the 19th century, we have critics who are criticizing Walt Whitman that he's not industrious enough. And so keep this in mind as we go through all the different slides. So we're looking at the immediate text. Whenever you want to look at a literary work, you look at the immediate text. You don't go and find um, secondary source material to try to understand the text itself. You want to take some time to learn how to look at the text yourself, and that's what we're going to do. So stanza one, when I was going over this and I read it multiple times, and I looked for key words within a particular line, and then I sort of sum it up using a that key word. So stanza one is about the assumption. All right, I'm going to read it. So I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul to loaf. Well, I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air. Born here of parents, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I, now I'm 37 years old, in perfect health begin, hoping to cease not to death. Creeds and schools in abeyance, retiring back a while, sufficed at what they are, but never forgotten. I harbor for good or bad. I permit to speak at every hazard. Nature without check with original energy. So let's look at the first two lines for a minute. I celebrate myself and sing myself, meaning that I think of myself just as highly as anybody else, right? So I want to celebrate myself. I'm part of the common, and I want to take some time to celebrate and sing myself. I, and what I assume, you shall assume. This is based upon the idea that that you're going to base your assumptions on what I assume. So this is me assuming, Walt Whitman assuming, and so whatever assumptions that I outline for you, then you shall assume yourself as well. Meaning that you're not going to create different assumptions based upon your interpretation of my assumption. I'm giving you what my assumption is. So what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. So not only do I have an atom in my body, so do you, as good belongs to you. We both are the same in our understanding of who we are as a physical person. Um, Atom, I think, is the smallest element of chemistry or something like that. And so, not only do I have chemistry, you also have chemistry. I loaf and invite my soul. Loaf here means to wander, it means to wander aimlessly. And so it is it's to spend time in a lazy, aimless manner. Spend time in a lazy, aimless manner, meaning that I'm making a choice to loaf. Loaf here works like a verb. So then I invite my soul to do the same. So I here is in a first person I verb here. And then I'm also inviting my soul. So then I lean and loaf at my ease. And I'm also taking time to observe a spear of summer grass. Grass is mentioned also throughout the rest of the stanzas. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air. So I come from the air. I come from the earth. Born here of parents, born here from parents. So born here of parents. So my parents, born here from parents the same. My parents have parents, and their parents the same. My parents have parents who also have parents. So now we're talking about generation, right? So um, um, I'm one generation. My parents was a generation. Their parents was a generation. I'm 37. So now he's dating this. He's giving you an age. He's going to give you a contrasting age within the other 20 stanzas. But we know that he's 37 here and he's in perfect health. He's also hoping to cease not until death. So he's not really ready to die just yet. So he in the same way that he wants to loaf and lean and loaf, he wants to do so not to death. When death comes, there would be no need to loaf. Uh, Creeds and schools in abeyance. Abeyance here is a state of temperance, disuse, or suspension. Retiring back a while suffice that what they are, but never forgotten. So even though they are suspended, or it's a state of temperance, or it's in disuse, a school is never forgotten. Creeds that you get from schools, core values, belief systems. Like in a school, you learn the how to school policies, anything rules, anything like that, they're never forgotten. So even though there is a retiring of them, there is disuse, which means abeyance. They are never forgotten. I harbor for good or bad. I permit to speak at every hazard. So regardless of how I speak, whether it's for good or bad, I'm going to do it at every hazard, at every opportunity. Nature without check with original energy. So nature without check is usually social checks. It's usually what our parents say to us: don't go and embarrass me in front of people. That could be social perception. That could be economic perception, right? But I want to speak from original energy. I don't want you to check me in the common language today. I want to exercise my nature by speaking at every hazard, right? And loafing about and assuming, and I don't want you to check me just because I do that. All right, so stanza two, I believe, is about the purification. And so we're not going to go into that. And one of the words, distillation, when I looked it up, was about purification. So now let's look at that. All right, so let's look at stanza number two, and it's in two slides. So here's the first slide. Houses and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it and like it. The distillation would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. The atmosphere is not a perfume. It has no taste of the distillation. It is odorless. It is for my mouth forever. I am in love with it. I will go to the bank, by the wood, and become undisguised and naked. I am mad for it to be in contact with me. The smoke of my own breath echoes, ripples, buzzed whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and vine. My respiration and inspiration, the beating of my heart, the passing of blood and air through my lungs, the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, and of the shore and dark colored sea rocks, and of hay in the barn, the sound of the belched words of my voice, loosed to the eddies of the wind, a few light kisses, a few embraces, a reaching around of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag, the delight alone or in the rush of the streets or along the fields and hillsides, the feeling of health, the full noon trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun. So let's take the first two lines for a minute here. When you think about houses and rooms are full of perfumes, the shelves are crowded with perfumes. Think about a woman. A woman, just in particular, and this could still apply to a man, but a woman will have different types of perfumes in her on her counter, in her medicine cabinet, in some sort of little bag of other things that she might have with makeup. And when I think about perfumes, the house and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. This could be literal or figurative. So literal, it would be the actual perfumes. So a woman may have a perfume that she wears around the house just to splash on. A woman might have a perfume that she splashes on to go to the grocery store, something just to put on, something quick. It's usually cheap. A woman might have a perfume that she uses to go out on a date or to go to clubs or something like that. And then when she goes to bed at night, she may not necessarily put on perfume, but the lotion that she puts on rubs on, might have some perfumey quality to it. So a house and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. Is a literal can be literally assessed. But we can also look at the house and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes as figurative in terms of the criticisms that um, Walt Whitman receives because of his love for the ordinary, the extraordinary. I mean, the ordinary and the common, and um, that he cares more about taking time to experience and feel everything than to be industrious with his work. So when you think about shelves, a bookshelf, okay, and you think about a person who has a bookshelf in their office, in their home office, a lot of times you can tell what the argument is of that person and how they think based on the types of books that they have bought and put on the shelf. It's not the same book that's on the shelf, it's different books. Now let's look at genre. If the person loves a lot of novels, fantasy fiction, nonfiction, or something like that, and most of their library is filled or shelved with fantasy novels. Okay, that's their argument for life, right? And each of those fantasy novels has different types of arguments. There's a fantasy novel that focuses on like vampires or something, and then there's a fantasy novel that focuses on romance or something like that, right? But there are different arguments under one genre of novel. So that's a shelf that's filled with perfumes. The room is full with perfumes, uh, with with different books, and the shelf itself is. The perfumes in this case, then, when we look at it figuratively, we're thinking about the criticisms. What what each of these literary writers, authors, the period except the 19th century say about Walt Whitman. So then he says, I breathe the fragrance myself, know it, and like it. I don't necessarily think, if you look at know means awareness of some sort of consciousness, right? So he's breathing these perfumes or criticisms. He knows what they are, he's conscious of what they are. Liking it doesn't always necessarily mean that he likes it, like we would like a particular perfume. What like means in this particular uh, part is having the same characteristics or qualities. That part of him is them as well, meaning that he likely has criticized another literary writer, or his work has criticized another literary writer. So his like it could mean criticism of all the other different perfumes. Perfumes could be figurative again for literary writings as well. The distillation would intoxicate me. So distillation here is purification. That's what the definition is. It would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. So even though I'm prone to be critical, I'm prone to have a perfume that could be full of a house and room full of perfumes, or a shelf that's filled with perfumes, whether that's literal or figuratively. And even though I'm just as much as exposed to the fragrance, the different types of arguments, and I am aware and like it, I may have the same characteristics, but the distillation, the purification of it, purification meaning to sort of clean it out. The distillation means the action of purifying a liquid by a process of heating and cooling. The purification of it would intoxicate me, but I'm not going to let it completely intoxicate me. The atmosphere is not a perfume. Pay attention to this because the atmosphere here is the subject of the sentence, but is now there is a pronoun it. The atmosphere is not a prayer. It has no taste of the distillation. It is odorless. It is for my mouth forever, and I am in love with it. I will go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked. I am mad for it to be in contact with me. Now that's the one that I want you to pay attention to. That I'm mad that it is in contact with me. The atmosphere here is what we understand atmosphere to be, I think, in astronomy, um, envelopment of gases, right? But atmosphere has a different meaning also as a pervading tone or mood. Atmosphere is also means a pervading tone or mood, right? So the pervasive tone of perfumes, fragrances, distillation, being intoxicated by it, the atmosphere of it, I don't want it to be in contact with me. I'm actually mad. I'm mad that I know about it. And I'm mad that there may be some characteristics of it that I agree with. And that I'm mad that it could intoxicate me, and the purification of it could intoxicate me. And I don't want to let it. And I'm mad that I have to be in contact with it. It's kind of like a person, you're riding the bus, and each person has their right, in terms of free will, how they are going to conduct themselves, right? How they're going to conduct himself or herself. But then a person takes out a cigarette and smokes, and you are both in the atmosphere, or you're both um, in the elements outside, right? But you are mad that you have to be in contact with it, meaning that you don't want to be in contact with the smoke that's coming from the cigarette. You don't, you're not critical of the person smoking. You don't have a problem with them making that as a life choice for them, right? But and part of it could intoxicate you to think about maybe I should smoke, right? Um, and the air is not is there's some distillation of it, right? There's some purification because at times when the person is it smokes out, it smokes away from you. The smoke going is going away from you. But the fact that you still have to be in contact with, you both have to ride the bus, and you're standing at the bus stop, and it's not like you can walk down the street to another bus stop because it may be a long walk down the street, and then you might actually miss the bus. You're mad that you have to be in contact with it. Now, a person who smokes would not be mad. They would be intoxicated. They would like the perfumey aspect of it, the fragrance, the distillation, the atmosphere. Two people smoking at the bus stop, they would not be mad at each other for being in contact with each other. But a person who is not one thing and a person who is one thing, one of those people is mad that the other person is there, or the effects of the other person is there. So I'm mad for it to be in contact with the atmosphere. Okay. So then the smoke of my own breath echoes, ripples, buzzed, whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and vine. And then now he gets into my respiration and inspiration. Respiration means breathing, and then inspiration means the process of being mentally stimulated to do something. So I'm not mentally stimulated really to care about the perfumes, the fragrance, the distillation, the intoxication, the atmosphere, and being mad. I'm not really inspired to do something about that. My breathing and my process of being mentally stimulated to do something, I care about it here. So I care about the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, the shore and of the shore and dark colored sea rocks and hay in the bourne, the sound of the belched words of my voice loose to the eddies of the wind, a few light kisses, few embraces reaching around of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag, the delight alone or in the rush of the streets or along the fields and hillsides, the feeling of health, the full known trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun. I'm more inspired. That's the fragrance that I like. That's the atmosphere that I like. That's the distillation that I like. I am breathing and inspired, respiration and inspiration by these X amount of things here. One, two, three, four, five, six. And then in each of the six lines, you have different aspects of Whitman painting a picture of what he actually cares about. Remember, inspiration being the process of being mentally stimulated to do something. So I'm not mentally stimulated to care too much about the different perfumes, the house and room full of perfumes, or the shelves crowded with perfumes. I don't care too much about being inspired to do something about that. Meaning that even though it can intoxicate me, and even though there's some similar characteristics, and I'm aware I should not let it, and I'm mad that I have to be in contact with me. I don't want to be in contact with criticisms because the criticisms are not that necessarily useful because you are accusing me of being idle when I have every right to be idle. And so I like the inspiration that I get from rising from bed and meeting the sun. All right, here's the rest of stanza two. So, have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters and books. You should not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You should listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. So here, this is a form of rhetorical questioning, right? So have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to run? Meaning that have you taken the time to travel? Have you taken the time to perceive the purpose of the earth while you are on the earth? Have you taken the time to practice so long to learn to read? Meaning that in our modern day thinking, we don't really read as much as we used to read. We read to try to get the gist of the information, but we don't read it for a true understanding. And learning to read for understanding requires practice. Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of the poem? So here it is. There's a lot of assuming that you might do. There's a lot of purification that you might do, but what is the actual meaning of the poem? That's why you want to look at the immediate text. So now he's giving you an urge. Stop. Let me see if I can use red. Stop right here. Stop. Stop this day and night with me, and ye shall possess the origin of all poems. Stop, meaning slow down. I know we are in an era of industrial revolution and changes and technological improvements, but you still need to understand while you are here on this earth what your purpose is. So you shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns. That you shall no longer take things at second, third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters and books. Meaning that um, if you take the time yourself to get to learn how to practice so long to read, right? Learn how to practice so long to read. You will learn the meaning of poems, and you will learn the origin of poems, meaning history. So then you won't have to rely on second or third hand information about it. Then you shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. Meaning that second or third, or don't just rely on second or third. Don't even rely on me. Listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. Listen to all sides and filter them. So that means um, you are so busy trying to do all of this industry, but you're not taking time to develop. And life, no matter what season or period we're in, still requires some individual and professional development. So that's stanza two. All right, stanza three is about the talkers. So again, it is a referencing to the talkers. And so now let's look at it. Stanza three. Stanza three is kind of long. Um, so we're going to see. So I have heard what the talkers were talking, the talking of the beginning and the end, but I do not talk of the beginning or the end. There was never any more inception than there is now, nor any more youth or age than there is now, and will never be any more perfection than there is now, nor any more heaven or hell than there is now. Urge and urge and urge, always the procreant urge of the world. Out of the dimness, opposite equals advance. Always substance and increase, always sex. Always a knit of identity, always distinction, always a breed of life. To elaborate is no avail. Learn it and unlearn it, feel that it is so. Sure as the most certain sure, plumb in the uprights, well entreated, braced in the beams, stout as a horse, affectionate, haughty, electrical. So with this, I've heard what the talkers were talking, the talk of the beginning and the end, but I do not talk of the beginning or the end. Note that this is, pay attention to, this is and this is or. And or are two different types of conjunctions, okay? And these are coordinating conjunctions in grammar. So when you think about I have heard what the talkers were talking, meaning I am aware of what they talk about in terms of me. Talking is communication, right? And then I am aware that they talk of the beginning and of the end, right? So they don't choose what they talk about in terms of how they talk about me. They talk about both my beginning and my end. But I do not talk of the beginning or the end, meaning that I don't have time to talk about one thing or the other. I have something else to be concerned about. In addition, and these are sort of like historical references, right? If we looked at this figuratively, right? People love to recite history. There was never any more inception than there is now. Inception here means the establishment or starting point of an institution or activity. So we got all these starts. We got the start of technological improvement. We got the start of historical events. We have the start of this. There was never more. It seems like we are doing more starting now than we have before, nor any more youth or age than there is now. Youth and age come and go; those are seasons, and will never be any more perfection than there is now. Here it is. We are perfecting um, these seasons of life, and the current season is the 19th century industrial revolution. So here it is. We are perfecting technologically, economically, globally, right? Nor any more heaven or hell that there is not. Heaven or hell is still the beginning and the end. What we are guided by is the urge. We urge and urge and urge. Urge is essentially persistently persuaded to do something. We have this urge, this urge, this urge. Doing something and developing something are two different things. So out of the dimness, opposite equals advance. We have this urge to advance. And then we have this substance and increase. And urge is characterized or can be characterized figuratively as sex. Sex being two people coming together, right? Procreating. Then always a knit of identity, a distinction, a breed of life. To elaborate is no avail. So even though we are elaborating on something, we're not getting to the heart of it. We are learned and unlearned, and they all feel the same thing. Then we are very sure about who we are, right? So sure as the most certain sure. That person is plumb in the uprights, well entreated. Entreated is to entreat. This is Entreat, and that means to persuade someone to do something, begging or pleading. So not only are we have this urge to do something. We are entreated to persuade someone to do something, braced in the beam. So the sureness is plumb, entreaty, braced in the beams, stout as a horse, affectionate, haughty, electrical. Okay, so remember, there's a difference between and or. That even though the talkers are talking, they're talking about the beginning and the end of something, right? The heaven or hell, the youth or age, the inception of something. I don't really want to, but he's saying I don't really want to talk about that. I don't want to talk of the beginning or the end, or meaning that and refers to both beginning and end, um, or refers to either or. I could talk about the beginning, or I could talk about the end, or I just could not talk about either. Because we already have enough people talking about the inception of something, or committing to the inception of something. The youth and age, the perfection, the heaven or hell, the urge to continue to do something, and being well entreated to being persuaded to do something, and we're very sure of ourselves, right? We are extremely sure of ourselves. So that's stanza three. And here's the rest of stanza three. I in this mystery here we stand. Clear and sweet is my soul, and clear and sweet is all that is not my soul. Lack one, lacks both, and the unseen is proved by the seen, till that becomes unseen and receives proof in its turn. Showing the best and dividing it from the worst age vexes age. Knowing the perfect fitness and equanimity of things, while they discuss, I am silent and go bathe and admire myself. Welcome is every organ and attribute of me, and of any man hearty and clean. Not an inch, nor a particle of an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. I am satisfied, I see, dance, laugh, sing. As the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night, and withdraws at the peep of the day with stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered with white towels, swelling the house with their plenty, shall I postpone my acceptation and realization and scream at my eyes that they turn from gazing after and down the road, and forthwith cipher and show me to assent exactly the value of one and exactly the value of two, and which is ahead. I want to start at the bottom here. So exactly the value of one and the value of two, which is ahead. So a lot of times, this ahead here refers to um, sort of like a race. We have this race against time, and ahead means further forward. So of the value of one and exactly the value of two, which one has more value? Which one is ahead, right? So I in this mystery here we stand. Clear and sweet is my soul, and clear and sweet is all that is not my soul. So there is part of my soul that's very clear and sweet. Then there's part of my soul that is not clear and sweet. Okay. Lacks one, lacks both, and the unseen is proved by the seen. So whatever is uh, what you are not privy to, or what I don't privy you to, what you don't have access to, I don't give you access to as a mystery. The unseen is proved by the seen. So when I finally do reveal myself, what you didn't see about me, like the mask, I have this mask on, right? And so a lot of times we say oftentimes that when people meet us, we meet or we meet people, we meet their representative. So there's a lot that they're hiding. There's a lot that is clear and sweet in their soul that they present. And then there's a lot that is not and clear and sweet is all that is not my soul that they don't present. But once we see it, once they are maybe triggered or provoked, whatever we didn't see about that person is now seen. So the clear and sweet that is not my soul. To that becomes unseen and receives proof in its turn, showing the best and dividing it from the worst. Age vexes age, knowing the perfect fitness and equanimity of things. Equanimity means mental calmness, composure, evenness to temper. So knowing the perfect fitness and equanimity of things, while they discuss, I am silent. Go back to the talkers, go back to the assumers, I mean, the people who assume the assumptions. While they discuss, I am silent. So there are some things I'm going to be silent about. Even though you give me criticism, you are hurling criticism at me because of my idleness, Walt Whitman. There are some things I'm just not going to respond to. There's part of me that's going to be a clear and sweet is my soul. Then there's part of me that is not, that is clear and sweet, that is not my soul. And the part that I don't want to necessarily show you, even though I might end up showing you, could the unseen could become seen. But while they discuss, I'm choosing to be silent. Instead, I go bathe and admire myself. Welcome is every organ and attribute of me and of any man hearty and clean. Not an inch nor a particle of an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. I am satisfied. So, as much as you want to uh, insinuate that my lack of industry has something to do with some sort of lack of satisfaction with myself, no, I admire myself. I'm satisfied. As much as you want to tell me that I'm not satisfied, no, I'm very much satisfied. As the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night and withdraws at the peep of the day with a stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered. So I have a companion as well, with white towels swelling the house with their plenty. Shall I postpone my acceptation and realization and scream at my eyes that they turn from gazing after and down the road and forthwith cipher and show me to assent exactly the value of one and exactly the value of two, which is ahead. So as much as you're saying that I lack value because I'm not doing as much work as you are, I'm telling you that I actually have more value because I'm satisfied in who I am. I don't have to. I don't have to return a response to you just because you um, criticize me. Which of us are ahead? There's a value of you talking about me or criticizing me, and then there's a value of me doing what I want to do. Which one of us is having the better experience? Right? You are running around being industrious, but are you resting? Are you learning? Are you taking in the earth? So that's stanza 3. All right, stanza 4 is about the identity. And so there are areas of it that I really want to call attention to. So I need to slow down a little bit. So let's look at the identity. All right, stanza 4, trippers and askers surround me. People I meet, the effect upon me of my early life or the ward and city I live in or the nation, the latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors, old and new, my dinner, dress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man or woman I love, the sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill doing or loss or lack of money or depressions or exaltations, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events. Those come to me days and nights and go from me again, but they are not the me myself. So stanza 4 is split up in about two, I think. And trippers here refers to people who go on a trip. Okay. Askers are people who ask a question. They all surround me. The trippers, the people who come to see me, or the people who are on a trip. Uh, Maybe I'm giving a talk somewhere, and so these are people who are going on a trip, and these are people who are asking me something, and they are surrounding me. These are people I meet, the effect upon me of my early life or the world and city I live in or the nation. So we have late dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors old and new, my dinner dress, associates. So all of the goings on that I'm doing, that I'm carrying out my daily life, my commitments. I go to dinner, I dress, I have associates, I have a certain look, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man or woman I love. So indifference sometimes refers to hate. The sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill doing or lack or loss of lack of money or depressions. Battle the horrors of fratricidal war. Fratricidal war is conflict, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events. Those come to me days and nights and go from me again. So I'm aware of it. Uh, it, it might have some impact on me, but just like everybody else, they come to me and they go from me again. But they are not the me myself. I don't represent this conflict that you are sort of um, putting on me in terms of indifference or what the trippers ask, right? The people I meet, the discoveries, right? They are not the me myself. Apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am, stands amused, complacent, compassionating, idle, unitary, looks down, is erect, or bends an arm on an impalpable certain rest, looking with side curved head, curious what will come next, both in and out of the game and watching and wondering at it. Backward I see in my own days, where I sweated through fog with linguists and contenders. I have no mockings or arguments, I witness and wait. So again, this is referring to the criticisms, right? So apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am. I am what I am. Whatever you say I am, the talkers and the askers, right? The people who are traveling, the discoverers, all those types of people, it doesn't matter what you believe about me. I stand what I am. That means I stand amused, complacent, compassionating, idle, unitary. I looks down erect or bends an arm on an impalpable rest. So rest is there. Looking with side curved head, curious what will come next. So what do you have next for me? Both in and out of the game and watching it. So I'm in it, my idleness, my choice of being idle puts me in the game and puts me out of the game at my will. I can watch it and wonder at it. Backward I see in my own days where I sweated through the fog with linguists. So those days where I was so preoccupied by what people thought of me. Backward I see in my own days where I sweated through fog with linguists and contenders. All these people have all these different things to say about me. I contended with them. I sweated um, what they thought about me. Maybe they did have something more to say about me than I knew about myself. And I have no mockings or arguments. I witness and wait. So as much as I meaning that I can still be in the game and out of the game. I witness and wait. I don't necessarily have to add any sort of commentary. I could choose um, to say something or not say anything. But no matter what, I am what I am. I am what I am. And it doesn't matter what you believe about me. It all that matters is what I believe about myself. All right, stanza 5 is the appeal. So let's look at what this actually means. All right, I believe in you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. Loaf with me on the grass, loose the stop from your throat. Not words, not music or rhyme I want, not custom or lecture, not even the best. Only the lull I like, the hum of your valved voice. I mind how once we lay such a transparent summer morning, how you settled your head athwart my hips and gently turned over upon me, and parted the shirt from my bosom bone, and plunged your tongue to my bare stripped heart, and reached till you felt my beard, and reached till you felt my feet. Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that passed all the argument of the earth. Stanza 5 has another slide. Okay, let's look at. Let's take some time to think about um, this. We have different uh, pronouns here. Okay, we have first person I. I believe in you, my soul. You is second person you. The other I am must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. Abase means it means sort of like a behavior, a way that belittles or degrades someone. Um, I don't want to be a base. I'm not a base. I must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. So I believe in you, my soul, you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you. The other I am, I'm not quite sure what it is. If we have the soul here, we have an I, a first person I, we have you, my soul is almost personified, but soul is part of the body. The other human quality, the other I am, we don't know what the other I am is. Okay, and you must not be abased to the other. Loaf with me on the grass. So he's telling the soul, loaf with me, wander with me on the grass. Right? Remember, loaf means to aim, is aimless manner. Loaf with me on the grass. Loose the stop from your throat. So, soul, loaf with me, loose. Not words, not music or rhyme I want, not custom or lecture. I don't want a rhythm to it. I don't want a predictable pattern of loafing. Loafing is aimless manner. So there's no rhyme or reason to it, even if there is a choice behind it. I don't want a customer. I don't want to be lectured on how to loaf. I don't want you, my soul, to tell me how to enjoy the common. Not even the best. Only the lull I like. Lull is that calm or it sends you to sleep with soothing sounds, right? Like the hum of your valved voice. Valved voice. Valve means to it's a device or natural object that regulates or directs, controls the flow of fluid. It's a device that opens or closes. It's a device. So valved here is working like an adjective for the noun voice. So I don't I my you my soul, I want you to loaf with me. I want you to loose yourself. Let go of the rhythm or the music. You don't need your loafing to be accompanied by music or rhythm or predictability. You don't need to learn about loafing. You don't need to understand the custom. You don't need somebody to pour knowledge in to you about how to loaf, how to be aimless in your manner, in your behavior. You don't need to sit for a lecture of it. You only just need the lulling and the hum of your valved voice. I mind how once we lay such a transparent Sunday summer morning, How you settled your head athwart my hips and gentle, so he's still talking to the soul, and parted the shirt from my bosom bone and plunged your tongue to my bare stripped heart. Now it's sort of like personification, almost like a woman. And reached till you felt my beard, and reached till you held my feet. Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that passed all the argument of the earth. So all of the soul, the only purpose that he wants to give the soul to do is to do these things here. To lull me with your vowed voice, to be transparent Sunday summer morning, settle your head, gently turn over on me, part your shirt, right? It's almost talking like it's a relationship, a romantic relationship. And that's really the only thing that he wants the soul to do for him. All right, stanza 5. So, and I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own. And I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own, and that all the men ever born are also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers. And that a kelson of the creation is love, and limitless are leaves stiff or drooping in the fields, and brown ants in the little wells beneath them, and mossy scabs of the worm fence, heaped stones, elder, land, and pokeweed. I think probably the most important aspect of these lines is limitless. So, as much as there are limits on the earth, the hand of God is a limit, the Spirit of God is a limit, the brothers is a limit, the women, the sisters, the lovers are limits, the creation is a limit, brown ants, mossy scabs, these are all limits, right? But he wants to feel the same limitless as leaves stiff or drooping in the fields. That's the limitless that he wants to feel. All right, let's look at stanza 6, the owner. All right, stanza 6 has about 2 slides. A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green stuffs woven. Or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrance, sir, designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners, that we may see and remark and say, whose? Or I guess the grass is itself a child, the produced babe of the vegetation. Or I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic, and it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones, growing among black folks as among white. Kanak, Takahu, Takaho, Congressman, Cuff, I give them the same. I receive them the same. And now it seems to me the beautiful uncut hair of graves. Tenderly will I use you curling grass. It may be you transpire. It may be you transpire from the breasts of young men. It may be if I had known them, I would have loved them. It may be you are from old people or from offspring taken soon out of their mother's laps. So we're looking at the sort of like the owner of the grass. Who owns the grass? Okay. A child presents a both a rhetorical question as well as a question that he wants answered, because then it's he fetches it and gives it to the poet with full hands. What is the grass is rhetorical in the sense that it has implications of literary criticism, right? Who owns this literary work? Who owns this literary criticism of the work? The talkers and the critics who are criticizing Whitman, they are coming from all different types of sides, and that's why he tells you you need to listen to all sides. But it's a rhetorical question, and it's a question that also deserves to be answered. What is the grass? And it is the child fetching it to the poet with full hands because he wants an answer. But then he has, but here is a dilemma. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he is. So I don't know what the grass actually is. I'm not necessarily made from grass. I'm not composed of grass, so I don't know what grass is. My body composition is, I guess, chemical, right? So so the grass is more organic, I think. And so how could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be, so now he's going to define the grass. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition. So we understand what a flag is, right? But it is also a piece of cloth. Disposition means a person's inherent qualities of mind and character. So this might be the flag of my inherent quality and mind of character, right? Mind or character. Or out of hopeful green stuff woven. Or I guess it must be the handkerchief of the Lord. The grass must be the handkerchief. We know what a handkerchief is, a piece of cloth. Okay. It could be a scented gift, a remembrancer designedly dropped, right? It bearing the owner's name some way in the corners that we may see and remark and say, whose? To whom does the grass belong? Who is it, right? Or I guess the grass itself is a child, the produced babe of the vegetation. So the vegetation produces a child, right? Not a literal child, but an offspring in a way. Or I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic, and it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones. But if you stick, if you look at the presentation of a rhetorical question and then trying to answer it in different ways, possibilities, now you're looking at the equality of the grass or the how much all of us have been exposed to the grass, right? The grass could be figurative as well as in terms of thinking. So it grows among black folks as among white. That goes to the equality of it. Everyone has access to the grass. You then there's a geography of it. You can see the grass in Connaught. You can see the grass in Tuckahoe. The congressman knows about the grass. The cuff. I give them the same. I receive the same. And now it seems to me the beautiful uncut hair of grays. So you will see grass and grays. Okay. And if no one cuts the grass, then it's going to grow on top of the grass. Tenderly will I use curling grass. It may be you transpire from the breasts of young men. It may be if I had known what I would have loved them. It may be you are from old people or from offspring taken out of the mother's laps. So the grass, we have a presentation of a rhetorical question that also needs to be answered, and the poet is giving you possible definitions of what of how to interpret grass as useful. But then we also have the equality argument where uh, the grass is available to everybody, black and white alike. Geographically, it's available. It's in grades. So grass um, in this sense could be opportunity, it could be understanding, it could be trying to get a better understanding of idleness, meaning that grass could be the criticism, but grass could also mean that in the same way that I loaf around and I aimlessly wander, you have that opportunity too. If you want to walk among the grass and live among the grass and receive it and accept it and embrace it and actually enjoy it, you can do that too. So why is it that you have to question me about why I want to loaf around and be idle when you can have that option as well? All right, this is the last of stanza 6. So and here you are, the mother's laps. This grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers, darker than the colorless beards of old men. dark to come from under the faint red roofs of mouths, or I perceive after all so many uttering tongues, and I perceive that they do not come from the roofs of mouths for nothing. I wish I could translate the hints about the dead young men and women, and the hints about old men and mothers, and the offspring taken soon out of their laps. What do you think has become of the young and old men? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest it, and ceased the moment life appeared. All goes onward and outward, nothing collapses. And to die is different from what one supposed and luckier. So I think the line, the smallest sprout shows there is really no death. So even if you think about mowing your lawn, right, or you are uprooting a weed or something like that, that weed is still going to come up, or that grass you can mow and mow and mow and get it down to the dirt, and somewhere um, just a little bit of a sprout can show up, meaning that there really is no death. Stanza 6, uh, which which really suggests hope, and it suggests both hope and uncertainty. There's also something I want to call attention to. The I want to call it to. I'm. Do I still have it here? Where does this end here? Okay, or the mother's laps. The grass is very dark. Where is it? The grass is very dark. Dark to be from the white heads of old mothers. Dark is the absence of light. Dark is the absence of light. Light refers oftentimes to wisdom and insight. So then the white heads of old mothers, usually they carry a lot of insight. But the grass is very dark to be from the, so it's not coming from them. So if we're getting a lot of criticism, it's not coming from the wisdom holders. It's not coming from people who understand the light of things, the understand the importance, the substance of things. So the grass is very dark. It's coming from a place where there is an absence of light, meaning the critics are criticizing, but they're not criticizing with insight. And if we listen to the white heads of old mothers, we will get more insight on the matter, on why it is important to enjoy the common, why sometimes it is important to be idle, why sometimes it is important to be to rest. As much as you want to improve and be revolutionary, it's going to produce a dark insight in you, because you are spending so much time revolutionizing, but you're not spending any time resting. And the white heads of old mothers will tell you that you need to rest, because at the end of the day, there is really no death. The smallest sprout shows that there really is no death. So you're working yourself to the bone, um, almost to death, when things are still going to continue on. All goes onward and outward, nothing really collapses. So you might as well take it season by season, step by step. You don't have to die um, just to get it done. Okay. All right. Stanza 7, the adjunct. The adjunct is something. It's a word that it's something that is added. It's a thing that is added to something else as supplementary. Is is added, is more supplementary than essential. So stanza 7 has another slide as well. So let's read it. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it is just as lucky to die, and I know it. I pass death with the dying and birth with the new washed babe, and I'm not contained between my hat and boots, and peruse manifold objects, no two alike and every one good. The earth good and the stars good and their adjuncts all good. I'm not an earth, nor an adjunct of an earth. I am the mate and companion of people, all just as immortal and fathomless as myself. They do not know how immortal, but I know. So the word here is adjunct, which is very important to think about. This is something that is supplementary, but not necessarily essential. So, for instance, within the realm of um, college teaching or even K through 12 teaching, you have K through 12 teaching, you have the regular faculty member who teaches the course, and then you may have a substitute who sort of comes in and supports the faculty member who is not there at that time, right? Just kind of keep the class or whatever. That's a substitute. Doesn't mean that that person is a substitute for the faculty member overall. It's just that that person is working as a supplementary while that faculty member is taking a break. In the field of college teaching, you have full-time faculty members, of course, and then you have adjunct instructors or adjunct faculty members. They're not considered substitutes in the same way in K through 12. Uh, Faculty members in all, whether it's full-time or part-time, all have master's degrees or PhD degrees, and they train how to teach, right, regardless. What he's saying here is the earth good and the stars good and their adjuncts are all good. So the earth is essential, the stars are essential, and what is adjunctive to the earth and the stars? So uh, all three are good. All three are I believe the earth and the stars are actually more necessary than the adjuncts of the that are all good. But he's saying that I am not an earth, nor an adjunct of an earth. I am the mate and companion of people, meaning that I'm essential. Even in all of my aimless wanderings, right? I'm still an essential person. I'm the mate and companion of people. I'm not just an adjunct. So you should consider me necessary. So has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it is just as lucky to die. And I know it. To die doesn't necessarily mean death itself. To die means here death to yourself, death to your will, death to what you want to do, death to the fact that you may need rest, that you are burned out from all of the work that you're doing. So you may have to tell yourself you need to rest. That's dying to your will to want to keep working. So you can be lucky to be born, meaning that you keep. It goes back to that slide about the urge and urge and urge to do something, the entreaty to do something, to be persuaded to do something, to create new things over and over and over again. Sometimes you need to be just as lucky to die. Sometimes you may need to give up something for the sake of rest. But all in all, he's basically saying that he's not an adjunct. He's not an adjunct. He's not a supplementary uh, to life. He is an essential part of life. The people who depend on him, the companions, the mates, they depend on him. And so he's essential. All right, last for stanza 7. So every kind for itself and its own. For me, mine, male and female. For me, those that have been boys and that love women. For me, the man that is proud and feels how it stings to be slighted. For me, the sweetheart and the old maid. For me, mothers and the mothers of mothers. For me, lips that have smiled, eyes that have shed tears. For me, children and the begetters of children. Undrape, you are not guilty to me, nor stale, nor discarded. I see through the broad cloth and gingham, whether or no, and I am around, tenacious, exquisitive, tireless, and cannot be shaken away. So I'm very much essential. I'm around. I'm tenacious. I'm acquisitive, tireless. and cannot be shaken away. You cannot get rid of me. Because when you go back to the example of the teacher, the K through 12 substitute, that person is not necessary, actually. The person is a substitute for a short time for a person who's actually essential. And so he's saying, because I'm not an adjunct and that I am an essential, necessary component of life, you cannot just shake me away, right? Um, that it is important that you understand that I have purpose just as much. I am around. My purpose is tenacious. I am acquisitive. I'm tireless, and you cannot shake me away. All right, stanza 8, the indifference. Indifference. Essentially, you don't love or hate something, right? I did say earlier that it could be hate, uh, represent hate, but a lot of times it's you don't feel one way or the other towards something, right? You're not really choosing. So let's look at the stanza. And there is another stanza for 8 as well. The little one sleeps in his cradle. I lift the gauze and look a long time and silently brush away flies with my hand. The youngster and the red-faced girl turn aside up the bushy hill. I peeringly view them from the top. The suicide sprawls on the bloody floor of the bedroom. I witness the corpse with its dabbled hair. I note where the pistol has fallen. The blab of the pave, tires of carts, slough of boot soles, talk of the promenaders, the heavy omnibus, the driver with his interrogating thumb, the clink of the shod horses on the granite floor, the snow sleighs, clinking shouted jokes, pelts of snowballs, the hurrahs for popular favorites, the fury of roused mobs, the flap of the curtain, litter of sick men inside borne to the hospital. Uh, what this reminds me of is witnessing the effects of war, witnessing a war, witnessing the effect of war. The little one sleeps in his cradle. Is sort of like a loss of innocence, and um, among this chaos here, uh, gauze always refers to medical gauze, right? I look a long time, silently brush the flies with my hand. So silently brushing away flies with my hand, meaning that um, the skin is infected, uh, probably rotting away. The youngster and the red-faced girl, red face probably refers um, to Native American, turned upside the bushy hill. I peeringly view from the top the suicide sprawls on the bloody floor of the bedroom. So we have a reference to death, death by suicide. I witnessed a corpse with this dabbled hair. So now we know that we can confirm that it's actually death. And I know where the pistol has fallen, meaning that person who killed himself or herself committed suicide. The blab of the paved, tires of cars, slough of boot soles, talk of the promenaders, the heavy omnibus, the driver with his interrogating thumb, the clank of the shod horses, snow sleighs, shouted jokes, the hurrahs for popular favorites, and then the flap of the curtain, litter a sick man inside borne to the hospital. Okay, so we have here what I be, what I believe some sort of tragedy or tragic elements. Suicide as a choice is referenced in here. That means that's death of the self. If that's death of the self in a literal sense, then it is contrasted with Whitman's poem when he's singing of himself. The poem is titled "Song of Myself." So we have here a contrast with a person committing suicide using a pistol, and that's death of the self, and that's contrasted with um, Whitman singing of himself throughout this poem. Okay, the meaning of Enemies, the sudden oath, the blows and fall, the excited crowd, the policeman with his star quickly working his passage through the center of the crowd, the impassive stones that receive and return so many echoes, what groans of overfed or half starved who fall sunstruck or in fits, what exclamations of women taken suddenly who hurry home and give birth to babes. What living and buried speech is always vibrating here, what howls restrained by decorum, arrests of criminals, slights, adulterers, offers made, acceptances, rejections with convex lips. I mind them, or the show or resonance of them. I come and depart. Pay attention to that. So, stanza 8 is giving you the policeman who has now come to figure out what happened to the person who committed suicide. And so we have an excited crowd here. We have an impassive stones, what groans, what explanations of women take. But he's also talking about how life still goes on because these are women taken suddenly who hurry home and give birth to babes. Or what living and buried speech is always vibrating here. What howls trained by decorum. Arrests of criminals continues. Slights, adulterers, offers, acceptances, rejections, convicts. That still goes on. But what he's saying here, I mind them or the show of resonance of them. Okay, there's that or again. Okay, so I either mind them or the show or resonance of them. Okay, this one or is the only or that's necessary. Okay, so I mind them or the show of resonance of them. But for him, which is interesting, is that I come and I depart. I come and I depart, meaning that he's not doing anything to help. He's not going to make a contribution. It's just like he's peering, he's almost like he's watching TV. I see something, but there isn't anything in here that basically says that he's going to do any help because the and here um, refers to both, right? I come and I depart. I don't need to stay here to figure out what went on. I got a clue about it, and I mind it. I see what's going on. It's part of life. It's part of the way things are done. And now I'm going to leave. So I could mind it or show the resonant or the I mind them or the show or resonance of them, and then based upon that decision, I come and I depart. All right, stanza 9 is about the harvest. Okay, so the big doors of the country barn stand open and ready. The dried grass of the harvest time loads the slow drawn wagon. The clear light plays on the brown, gray, and green intertinge. The armfuls are packed to the sagging mow. I am there. I help. I came stretched to top of the load. I felt its soft joints, one leg reclined on the other. I jumped from the cross beams and seized the clover and timothy, and rolled head over heels and tangled my hair full of whips. What is very important about this stanza is the word help. Where you see in the previous stanza, I come and I depart. There's no sense of help. There's no intent to help. There's only intent to observe, essentially. But in this stanza, the harvest, he wants to help. The big doors of the country barn stand open and ready. What this reminds me of the country opening up. So that could be opening to immigration. It could be opening. It could have the effect of America is open, meaning that we are in revolution during this 19th century period, and so that means we're open to economic growth. We're open to technology improvement, global um, global discussions. So the big doors of the country born stand open and ready. Not only are we open, but we're ready. Going back to that conjunction, and, right? That it makes it, it's not it, you can be open, like open for business, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are ready for business, right? And so the big doors of the country refers, in my opinion, refers to America being open, right? And then the dry grass, so we have the mention of grass again. Grass of the harvest time loads, the slow drawn wagon, the clear light plays on the ground gray, armfuls are packed, right? So we're having economic growth, right? It's symbolic of economic growth because they're armfuls. We're not in a scarcity, okay? I am there. I help. I can't stretch the top of the load. Me, and then now I'm gonna show you just how much of a contribution that I'm making. That I felt this soft joints, one leg reclined on the other. I jumped, I jumped from the cross beams and seized the clover in Timothy and rolled head over heels and tangled my hair full of whips. Timothy is a name, is a given name, a masculine name. Its Greek origin is Timotheos, which means honoring God. It is Timothy is also a disciple, companion to Apostle Paul in the Bible. But Timothy also refers to grass, a type of grass. It's a coarse grass, fodder, and it has European implications. So when you think about the big doors of the country, born are open and ready, and you look at the word Timothy here, and it has European implications. It's sort of like a European perennial grass. Then we can sort of confirm our assumptions that it's about likely immigration, uh, global talks, um, um, financial movement, uh, economic, right? The armfuls are packed to the sagging mow. It's there's so much going on with this harvest time that the wagon is so slow. There's so much of a harvest time load that is dragging the wagon in a sense, right? So the big doors of the country born stand open and ready. And I believe this has a lot to do with America being open economically, financially, politically, and then internationally. All right, so let's look at stanza 10, which is the hunt. I think I have it separated into a couple of slides as well. All right, so stanza 10. Alone, far in the wilds and mountains I hunt, wondering amazed at my own lightness and glee. In the late afternoon, choosing a safe spot to pass the night, kindling a fire and broiling the fresh killed game, falling asleep on the gathered leaves with my dog and gun by my side. The Yankee Clipper is under her sky sails. She cuts the sparkle and scud. My eyes settle the land. I bend at her prow or shout joyously from the deck. The boatmen and clam diggers arose early and stopped for me. I tucked my trouser ends in my boots and went and had a good time. You should have been with us that day round the chowder kettle. I saw the marriage of the trapper in the open air in the far west. The bride was a red girl. Her father and his friends sat near cross-legged and dumbly smoking. They had moccasins to their feet and large thick blankets hanging from their shoulders. On a bank lounged the trapper. He was dressed mostly in skins. His luxuriant beard and curls protected his neck. He held his bride by the hand. She had long eyelashes, her head was bare, her coarse straight locks descended upon her voluptuous limbs and reached to her feet. All right, so when you think about the hunt, you sort of have to look through uh, the lines to see what's really going on. Part of this part of this discussion is actually hunting. You know, where he talks about um, fresh killed game, kindling a fire. Anyone who has been on a hunting trip knows what this is. This is some familiarity. So he's throwing out key experiences or a visual of what it means to hunt. For falling asleep on the gathered leaves with my dog and my gun by my side. So we know this is a clear hunt because of the fresh kill game used by a gun. This is in contrast to one of the previous slides where the person commits suicide with a pistol. So the Yankee Clipper is under her sky sails. We're now on a boat. She cuts the sparkle and scud. My eyes settle the land. So there's some settling language here. Remember, early America was about colonization and then settlers, and then later, plantation owners, etc. I bend at her prow. That refers to the portion of a bow above a deck. Joyously from the deck, and so that's confirmation. And then we know we are on a boat or a ship or something like that because the boatmen and clam diggers arose early and stopped for me. I tucked my trouser ends in my boots and went and had a good time. You should have been with us that day round the chowder kettle. So again, we're hunting. Now, the marriage of the trapper in the open air in the far west, the bride was a red girl. We know that a red girl is usually, or referencing to red, usually is Native American. I thought the interesting though thing about the language of trapper. A trapper, when looking at up in a dictionary, it is a person who traps wild animals. So connecting Trapper to the bride of the red girl is suggesting that he's uh, that the person that Whitman sees is a trapper who is trapping a wild thing. Not necessarily, we wouldn't consider the person a wild thing, but that's the perception of the trapper uh, of the red girl, and that's the perception of the author of the red girl. But it's interesting though that I think that we need to note that the red girl has a family. Whereas you're going to see on the second slide from stanza 10 that the Negro that he references doesn't have a family. So her father and his friends sat cross-leggedly. Here's their character of smoking. They had moccasins to their feet, large thick blankets hanging from their shoulders, and then on a and then so then this person this bride is a red girl comes from a family. So the marriage of the trapper is the trapper gets to know her family. It's not like she's just so that's so the trapper is kind of like contrast, right? Because she can't be too wild if she comes from some origin, some place. And then on a bank lounge, the trapper, so he's lounging, right? Dressly, mostly in skin, so he's sort of becoming like the environment. Um, Usually, it's the Native American who is dressed in skins, but we know it's a contrast because there's a luxuriant bird in curls protecting his neck, but he holds his bride by the hand. And then we have some character of her. So not only is she a red girl, but she has long eyelashes, head was bare, coarse straight locks, voluptuous limbs, and they reach to her feet. So we have some characteristic of the trapper. We have another characteristic of the red girl. We have characteristics of her family, and then, of course, this is the hunt. Um, Now, whether or not the trapper is a hunter, of course. So at some point, he had to hunt for the red girl. So keep that in mind. All right, the rest of stanza 10. The runaway slave came to my house and stopped outside. I heard his motions crackling the twigs of the woodpile. Through the swung half door of the kitchen, I saw him limpsy and weak, and went where he sat on a log and led him in and assured him. and brought water and filled a tub for his sweated body and bruised feet, and gave him a room that entered from my own, and gave him some coarse, clean clothes. And remember perfectly well his revolving eyes and his awkwardness, and remember putting plasters on the walls of his neck and ankles. He stayed with me a week before he was recuperated and passed north. I had him sit next me at table, my fire locked leaned in the corner. This is stanza 10. This part of stanza 10 is in contrast to stanza 8. Remember when he says, I mind them, or the show or resonance of them, I come and I depart. And then stanza 9 is, so stanza 8 was him not helping, not offering any help, just basically, I come and I depart. Stanza 9 is where we were talking about the big doors of the country barn stand open and ready. And then he says, I am there, I help, I came stretched atop of the load. And that's stanza 9. Now we're in stanza 10, the second part of stanza 10, where he's looking at the runaway slave. Sorry about that, I said Negro, but it's actually runaway slave. And remember, the previous lines were about the trapper. So the trapper only trapped the red girl, and became one of the people in her family dynamic dressed in skins. But I thought it was very interesting that the runaway slave came to my house and stopped. I heard motions through the swung half door of the kitchen. I saw him limsy. So there's a perception of him as we know that he's a runaway slave because of his skin color, and it would just be obvious during that time because remember this is 1819 to 1892. So we have a runaway slave as a character. He's coming to a particular house, stopping, and don't forget that and there. And the poet says, I heard his motions crackling the wigs of the wood pile through the swung half door of the kitchen. I saw him limsy. So now there's a perception of him as being limsy and weak. And went where he sat on a log, and led him and assured him, so I'm here, I'm not an enemy. And then he brought water, filled the tubs for his sweated body and bruised feet, gave him a room that entered from my own, and gave him some coarse clothes. And remember perfectly well his revolving eyes and his awkwardness. And remember putting plasters on the walls of his neck and ankles. And he stayed with me a week before he recuperated and passed north. So usually runaway slaves were leaving from south to north. And I had him sit next to me at the table. My firelock leaned in the corner. Um, and I'm assuming that's a gun. But what this suggests to me is hospitality. During the time when runaway slaves uh, who did not want to serve their masters anymore involuntarily ran away, and at times they needed to get somewhere to refresh. And so whereas he's not helping in stanza 8 when he says, I come and I depart, then the word help is referenced in 9 when he says, I am there, I help, I came stretched atop of the load. Here is a different types of help. Help is help is implicitly defined. There's a perception of him as a runaway slave, and a perception of him being limsy and weak, and assurance that I'm not going to do you harm. And so now he's going through the steps of helping him. That's bringing water, filling a tub, giving him a room, giving him clothes, staying with him, letting him stay with him for a week, letting him recuperate, let him sit next to me at the table. Now we're talking about some form of equality. We're probably, with these lines, we're probably close to the Emancipation Proclamation being signed with 1863. And so this is probably a few years prior to that, where there's still the struggle with master and slave. So just think about that. Sometimes the lines won't use the word help, right? In this case, between slides 8, 9, and 10. But look at the step by step step decisions, meaning that this is not an aimless wandering decision. Whereas in the beginning, I loaf and invite my soul to loaf, meaning aimless wandering. Here, he's actually alert and he's making a decision to help a particular type of character in history that actually you could have gone to jail and gotten killed yourself if you helped a runaway slave. And so and this is the hospitality that America implicitly should have shown runaway slaves how to do. This would work like a step-by-step guide if we were looking at any of the abolitionists, um, and how they approached pursuit of abolishing slavery, by helping runaway slaves, by appealing to uh, appealing to the legislature, any type of way. This is what you should do when you help your fellow man, right here. Okay, so that's stanza 10. All right, let's look at stanza 11, the choice. All right, 28 young men bathed by the shore, 28 young men and also friendly, 28 years of womanly life and also lonesome. She owns the fine house by the rise of the bank. She hides handsome and richly dressed after blinds of the window. Which of the young men does she like the best? Ah, the homeliest of them is beautiful to her. Where are you off to, lady? For I see you. You splash in the water there, yet stay stock still in your room. Dancing and laughing along the beach came the 29th bather. The rest did not see her, but she saw them and loved them. The beards of the young men glistened with wet. It ran from their long hair. Little streams passed all over their bodies. An unseen hand also passed over their bodies. It descended tremblingly from their temples and ribs. The young men float on their backs, their white bellies bulge to the sun. They do not ask who seizes fast to them. They do not know who puffs and declines with pendant and bending arch. They do not think whom they souse with spray. So to me, what this looked like is just leisure, just um, the people in their leisure. We do have a contrast in age. So the lady, we have 28 young men, and then a 29th bather coming. But we have an age here, 28 years of womanly life and also lonesome. So now we have a character of a woman. We move from the character of the red girl and the trapper, and then the runaway slave, right? And now we are moving to 28 years of a womanly life. And so we don't know the age of the red girl in the previous stanza 10. We just know that she's a bride, she's married. So then here it is, this 28 years of womanly life and also lonesome. We don't see that she's married. But what she does in her lonesome time is she owns a fine house. She hides handsome, richly dressed, behind the blinds of a window, and then she has a choice. The poet is giving her a choice. Which of the young men does she like the best? So there's a contrast to her 28 years, which we would consider young, but she would be considered old because she's likely not a bride. Um, so how old are the 28 men if they're young is something that you got to think about. So, and all the homeliest of them is beautiful for her. And so where are you off to, lady? For I see you. What's your purpose in life, essentially? Because you're already 28, you have a womanly life, and you're lonesome. And this is the perception of the poet saying this, right? But he's taking sort of almost like a bird's eye view of the dynamic between the 28 young men, later 29th bather, and the 28-year-old woman who is lonesome. And so here it is. You got a choice of men to choose from. Um, and the choice might be in contrast to the trapper and the red girl. Once he trapped her, she no longer had a choice, right? And so then you go through this motion of splashing in the water, yet you stay stock still in your room. Here it is, you could enjoy coming out and meeting one of these men and making a choice, but you stay in your room instead. And then you're dancing and laughing along the beach. I mean, the dancing and laughing along the beach came the 29th bather. So all of these 28 young men plus the 29th bather, they're living their best life. In contrast to the 28-year-old woman who is lonesome, who has a pick of the litter, uh, but she decides to stay in her room. The rest did not see her, but she saw them and loved them. The beards of the young men glistened, little streams passed over their bodies. So now we're getting some imagery of the men, who they are, and what they're doing is more leisure um, type thing, lifestyle. They're floating on their backs. They don't really have a care in the world. Their white bellies bulge to the sun. So we don't know, their white bellies likely refers to white men. So we don't know the race of the woman. We know the race of the woman in stanza 10, the red girl, but we don't know the race of the woman in this particular lines uh, in this stanza. And they do not ask who seizes fast to them. They do not know who puffs and claps, meaning that they do not know, meaning that they don't really care. They all they care about in this moment is just sunbathing, and so spraying suntan lotion on them and just enjoying the moment instead of being stuck in their room. So that's stanza 11. All right, stanza 12, the lauder, and we understand what lauder means. All right, the butcher boy puts off his killing clothes or sharpens his knife at the stall in the market. I lauder, enjoying his repartee and his shuffle and breakdown. Blacksmiths with grimed and hairy chests environ the anvil. Each has its main sledge. They are all out. There is a great heat in the fire. From the cinder-strewed threshold I follow their movements. The lithe sheer of their waists plays even with their massive arms. Overhand the hammers swing, overhand so slow, overhand so sure. They do not hasten, each man hits in his place. So the butcher board we have the this is about laudering here in terms of the poet. To lauder means to stand or wait around idly or without apparent purpose. So then we have a contrast to the poet laudering and the butcher boy and the blacksmiths and the main sledge. All these are these actions are purpose filled. So the poet is just laudering, but he's perceiving the actions of the purposeful actions of the butcher boy, putting on his killing clothes. I mean, taking off his killing clothes, sharpening his knife at the stall. Um, I later enjoy. So the poet thinks about the repartee and his shuffle and breakdown, but we have a blacksmith with grime. So grimed and hairy chest environ the anvil, and environ is surround, and anvil is a heavy steel. Each has his main sledge. They are all out. There's a great heat in the fire. The sinister threshold, I follow their movement. So he's still laudering in contrast to the people around him with purpose. The listure of their waist plays even with their massive arms. Overhand the hammer swing. Overhand so slow. Overhand so shoot, because the hammer is heavy enough as it is. They do not hasten, each man hits in his place. So there's a focused aspect of what they are trying to accomplish when they are when they are a butcher boy, or when they are a blacksmith, or when they are a person who hammers, right? And this is in contrast to the person who is the lauder, the person who is just loitering around. They're standing around idly without any apparent purpose. So that's stanza 12. All right, let's look at stanza 13, the Negro and the tread. So now we have a contrast between the previous stanza 10 about the runaway slave. Now we're moving into the characteristic of the Negro. All right, stanza 13 has another slide as well. The Negro holds firmly the reins of his four horses. The block swags underneath on his tied over chain. The Negro drives the long dray of the stone yard. Steady and tall, he stands poised on one leg on the string piece. His blue shirt exposes his ample neck and breast and loosens over his hip band. His glance is calm and commanding. He tosses the slouch of his hat away from his forehead. The sun falls on his crispy hair and mustache, falls on the black of his polished and perfect limbs. I behold the picturesque giant and love him, and I do not stop there. I go with the team also. In me, the caresser of life, wherever moving, backward as well as forward, slewing. To niches aside and junior bending, not a person or object missing, absorbing all to myself and for this song. Oxen that rattle the yoke and chain or halt in the leafy shade. What is that? What is that you express in your eyes? It seems to me more than all the print I have read in my life. So the Negro here, contrasted in stanza 10, the Negro here has more freedom. He's not considered a runaway slave. So the runaway slave is considered property. The Negro has moved out of property to personal agency. He can move about. So that means there may be a historical implication here of the Emancipation Proclamation here. Negro, I don't remember what the timeline of Negro in terms of black people, the um, being referred to Negro. Um, so I don't know when that began. I would have to look that up on my own later. But there is a contrast, right, between the stanzas. So when you think about um, the differences between first person and third person. We have Negro holds something, block swags, Negro drives something, steady. Then we have his blue shirt exposes his ample neck and loosens. His glance is calm and commanding. The sun falls on his crispy hair on his back. And then we shift from third person to I. So we shift from a perception of a character in history and the Negro, right, in history, moving from stanza 10, a runaway slave, to now a new demographic, gender based, race based category. Now we move to the actual, we return to the poet. So I behold the picturesque giant. I do not stop there. Okay. I go with the team also. In me, the caresser of life, wherever moving, backward as well as forward slewing. And we are convinced that when he calls himself a caresser of life, that we can sort of believe him because of how he treated the runaway slave with hospitality. We don't see any racial animus of the poet towards the red girl. He's just giving you, he's basically, Whitman is just giving you the context of the time. And so our perception of how Whitman perceives the runaway slave, and then in contrast to the Negro, has some consistency because he doesn't provide any sort of racial animus towards these characters. Okay, and then it seems to me more than all the print. So oxen that rattle the yoke and chain or halt in a leafy shade. What is that you express in your eyes? What is your expression? What's going on with you? That this yoke and chain, which was actually referred to, which was really applied to um, the runaway slave, is not applied to the Negro. This reference to yoke and chain is not applied to the Negro. It's applied to the oxen, the actual animal. Whereas in history, Negro runaway slaves, they were treated like animals. They were treated like property, assets, etc. So what is it? How do you feel? What is that you express in your eyes? Because an oxen is supposed to be yoked and chained. The oxen that rattle the yoke, they're supposed to be because they're considered animals. But what is it when you look at an animal that is in yoke and chain? What is that expression? Do they believe that they're supposed to be yoked and chained, or do they believe that they're not supposed to? Animals don't have that kind of um, contemplative, critical thinking skills, but you can perceive an animal if the animal is trying to get out of the yoke and chain. That in that animal, not all living things do not want to be yoked and chained. Yoke and chain here also kind of refers to a biblical uh, reference here, and the scripture reads, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." And so that may have some sort of biblical implications in this. I'm not quite sure, but it is worthy to note that the poet does not link yoke and chain to the Negro, and he didn't link yoke and chain to the runaway slave because of the hospitality he shows them. All right, the rest of stanza 13. So my tread scares the wood drake and wood duck on my distant and day long ramble. They rise together, they slow circle around. I believe in those winged purposes and acknowledge red, yellow, white playing within me. And consider green and violet and the tufted crown intentional. And do not call the tortoise unworthy because she is not something else. And the jay in the woods never studied the gamut yet trills pretty well to me. And the look of the bay more mare shames silliness out of me. So the tread is, of course, a walk. It's usually how you walk is your way, and the tread is walk in a specified way. Your walk, your manner of life. Okay, and then the walk when you're thinking about we're still in third person plural. So my tread scares the wood drake and wood duck on my distant and long day ramble. They rise together, they slowly, there's that they, third person plural. Long day ramble is something that rambling is something that we've always done, like um how we talk, how we ramble about without any purpose. Well, remember, Song of Myself is about idleness. So here it is, we have this certain walk that we have, but it still leads to idleness, right? To ramble. um but the wood drake and the wood duck, they rise together, they slowly circle around. I believe in those winged purposes here would have some idea about um what is included in having a purpose, right? The wing purpose is connected to something. Like wings are connected to the base of a bird. The wings are not separate from the bird itself. So your purposes that you go after should not be separate from who you are as an individual. Sometimes though the purpose can be sometimes your purpose can lead to rambling or idle and you not necessarily accomplish anything. However, if the goal is to be idle, then you have accomplished something. The red, yellow, white, it could mean a lot to do with race, how we often say, I don't care if you red, yellow, white, green, purple, that type of thing. It could mean that. And then for this, Um, uh, for this, let me see if Rambo is further defined. It doesn't look like it's further defined. The tread isn't further defined. But the perception of the tortoise, the jay in the woods, that's the bird, and then the mare, the animal, they all have their purpose. They all have their purpose. All right. So that's stanza 13. Let's look at stanza 14, which is the glance. And the glance is going to be perceived in two different ways. And there's another slide after this one. The wild gander leads his flock through the cool night. Yahunk, he says, and sounds it down to me like an invitation. The pert may suppose it meaningless, but I listening close, find its purpose and place up there toward the wintry sky. The sharp-hoofed moose of the north, the cat on the house sill, the chickadee, the prairie dog, the litter of the grunting sow as they tug at her teats, the brood of the turkey hen and she with her half spread wings, I see in them and myself the same old law. The press of my foot to the earth springs 100 affections. They scorn the best I can do to relate them. I am enamored of growing outdoors. So let's look at while gander refers to a gander refers to a male goose, and we know that to be true because we have the um, pronoun referring to gander. It's antecedent gander. Okay, so it is a he, and it flocks through the cool night. Gander also means a look or glance, a look or glance. So remember that this can be a male goose because you see all of the other animals that are referenced, but it can also mean a look or glance. Take a brief or hurried look. So if we sort of think about it in terms of a look or glance, um, then we could think about the rest of this as the poet sort of taking a look or glance at the purposes of all the different animals, right? The gander leads his flock. Um, and his yahunk sounds like an invitation. Okay, that's an invitation. The pert may suppose it meaningless, but I listening close. I find his purpose and place up there toward the wintry sky. So there's his purpose. It's up there in the sky. The moose, the hoofed moose of the north, the cat on the house sill, the chickadee, the prairie dog. Okay, they each have their own purpose. Okay, the litter of the grunting sow as they tug at her teeth. So she's a mama, right? Versus this is a male goose. This is a sow, a pig, with her litter tugging at her teeth, meaning that they are um, drinking her milk. Okay. The brood of the turkey hen. So this is a turkey hen. This is a woman. I mean, a female, and her brood, and she with her halfway spring. I see in them and myself the same old law, which goes back to the urge, right? Remember the urge and the urge and the urge to procreate, to sex, things like that, right? I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, urge and urge and urge. It might have been, I can't find it just yet, but mom was thinking that it was probably, oh, it was stanza 3, the urge. So I see in them, we are basically the same in terms of how we look at reproduction, I guess, right? Production, procreating. The press of my foot to the earth springs 100 affections. They scorn the best I can do to relate them. I am enamored of growing outdoors. So this goes back to the idle, the rambling, the loitering, the lulling, everything like that. He seems to be growing more outdoors than he would if he was indoors. And you see this being the same thing because the litter is outdoors. The brood of the turkey hen is outdoors. All of these other animals are outdoors, and they tend to be doing very well. The Yahonk, he says, and sounds it down to me like an invitation, may go back to that sort of the doors of America are open, but it was actually the doors of the barns are open, and that was it was one of those. It could have been stanza 9. The big doors of the country born stand open and ready, right? So that invitation there could mean just inviting someone, inviting the animal, inviting the human into its space. That's the best way I can explain that. All right, the rest of stanza 4. So, of men that live among cattle or taste of the ocean or woods, of the builders and steerers of ships and the wielders of axes and mauls, and the drivers of horses, I can eat and sleep with them week in and week out. What is commonest, cheapest, nearest, easiest is me. Me going in for my chances, spending for vast returns, um, adorning myself to bestow myself on the first that will take me, not asking the sky to come down to my goodwill, scattering it freely forever. This kind of reminds me of investing in oneself. uh, when you look at this sentence, me going in for my chances, spending for vast returns, sort of like that return on investment. If I invest in myself to lull about, to loiter, to loaf about, ramble about, rest, take in the earth, learn about the earth, understand the grass, then I'm going to get a return on my investment. That's what this kind of reminds me of. The what is commonest, cheapest, nearest, easiest is me. Reminds me of just commonality, right? The state of sharing features or attributes. And that's what he was talking about in the introduction, or the writers were referring to in the introduction. Is about the common man. It's not about trying to be the best. It's not about trying to do all this industry and work. It's about understanding what is the most common thing to consider. Um, Also, thinking about the glance from the previous slide, that a glance often produces realization that we have similar features, not the same, right? Not similar does not mean same. And so when he talks about, when he discusses, I see in them and myself the same old law, we have similar features. We have similar characteristics, even though the animal is the animal and the human is the human. Okay. And then not asking the sky to come down to my goodwill. So I'm not trying to make the sky a base to me. There was something like that in the previous where I'm not expecting it to a base to me. Um, I don't see it right off in my notes, but it was one of those stanzas where I'm not expecting you to base to me. So um, give me a minute. It's stanza 5. Stanza 5. I believe in you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. So when he's saying, I'm not asking the sky to come down to my goodwill. The sky has its own purpose. The sky is beautiful and purposeful and singular in its own purpose. And so I'm not asking the sky to bend to my will, my earthly, my conscious, my selfish will. The sky has to do what the sky has to do. And so the most important thing just to remember is that it's the commonality that you need, that we're all on some levels common. As much as we have all of these distinctions in terms of race and gender, economic strata, everything, we're still really common in our thinking and in the same way that we carry out our lives. So that's stanza 14. All right, stanza 15 is the list. It's a lot of listing. Stanza 15 is multiple slides. So I will likely separate this from the major presentation. Okay, so when you take this kind of slow, here is the list. All right, the pure contralto sings in the organ loft. The carpenter dresses his plank, the tongue of his foreplane whistles its wild ascending lisp. The married and unmarried children ride home to their Thanksgiving dinner. The pilot seizes the kingpin. He heaves down with a strong arm. The mate stands braced in the whaleboat, lance and harpoon are ready. The duck shooter walks by silent and cautious stretches. The deacons are ordained with crossed hands at the altar. The spinning girl retreats and advances to the hum of the big wheel. The farmer stops by the bars as he walks on a first day loaf and looks at the oats and rye. The lunatic is carried at last to the asylum, a confirmed case. He will never sleep any more as he did in the cot in his mother's bedroom. The jeweled printer with gray head and gaunt jaws works at his case. He turns his quid of tobacco while his eyes blur with the manuscript. The malformed limbs are tied to the surgeon's table. What is removed drops horribly in a pail. The cardroom girl is sold at the auction stand. The drunkard nods by the bar room stove. So when you're thinking about this list, this is list of particular characters, subjects of history, and list of activities as well. So we have the pure contralto sings. We have the carpenter dressing his plank. We have the married and unmarried children coming home. The pilot seizing the kingspin. The mate standing braced. The duck shooter walks by. The deacons referring to church or religion or ordained. The spinning girl retreats. The farmer stops by the bars. And then also loaf and looks at the row oats. So loaf is connected to the farmer, which is also connected to Whitman. And loaf, remember, is to uh, wander aimlessly. The lunatic is carried away at the asylum. The jewel printer with gray head and gaunt jaws works at his case, so he's a man. He's an old man. He turns his quid of tobacco. The malformed limbs, we don't even know if this is we know it's a person or it could be an animal. So we don't even know what malformed limbs refers to. And what is removed drops horribly in a pail. And then the cardroom girl is sold at the auction stand. The quadroon girl actually refers to um, a person who is one quarter black by descent. So remember, we had a runaway slave, then we had Negro, and then we had a now we have a quadroon girl. Remember, a person who is one quarter black by descent. So the runaway slave is assumed to be full black. The Negro is assumed to be full black. The quadroon girl is assumed to be half black. Okay, so this is sort of like a listing. There's a lot going on. Um, the one thing you want to look at, the lunatic is carried at the asylum. He was never the jar. Okay, that's like one person. Which is the journey he turns his. Okay, now, all right. So just keep that in mind. That's the first part of the list. All right, so the machinist rolls up his sleeves. The policeman travels his beat. The gatekeeper marks who passed. So we're just going to do it as we go. The machinist, the policeman, the gatekeeper marks who passed. The young fellow drives the express wagon. I love him, though I do not know him. The half breed straps on his light boots to compete in the race. So we have a reference to race here, which could be literal or figurative, right? The Western turkey shooting draws old and young, right? So now we're talking about events. Out from the crowd steps the marksman. He takes his position, levels his piece. The groups of newly come immigrants cover the wharf or levee. As the woolly pates hoe in the sugar field, the overseer views them from his saddle. The bugle calls in the ballroom. The gentlemen run for their partners. The dancers bow to each other. The youth lies awake in the cedar roofed garret and harks to the musical ring. The wolverine sets traps on the creek that helps fill the Huron. The squaw, referring to Native American, wrapped in her yellow hem cloth, is offering moccasins and bead bags for sale. So we're probably at a market. The connoisseur peers along the exhibition gallery with half-shut eyes bent sideways. As the deckhands make fast the steamboat, the plank is thrown for the shore-going passengers. The young sister holds out the skein, while the elder sister wins it off in a ball and stops now and then for the knots. The 1 year wife is recovering and happy having a week ago born her first child. Okay. The clean haired Yankee girl works at her sewing machine or in the factory or mill. The paving man leans on his two-handed rammer. The reporter's lead flies swiftly over the notebook. The sign painter is lettering with blue and gold. The canal boy trots on the towpath. The bookkeeper counts at his desk. The shoemaker waxes his thread. The conductor beats his time for the band, and all the performers follow him. The child is baptized. The convert is making his first professions. So, again, we're still listing. And what I believe the listing is about is more about what is progressing. The 19th century is about um, um, not revolution, but the first and second industrial revolutions. And so as life for the poet Whitman is about loitering and rambling and loafing about aimlessly wandering, he is still met with activity around him. He is still met with people having to live life. They don't have time to loaf about. The machinist has to roll up his sleeves. The policeman has to do his job. He has to travel his beat. The gatekeeper marks who pass. He can't. The gatekeeper just can't let anybody in. They have to know that the person qualifies to pass. The young fellow has to drive his express wagon. The half breed. So now we have half breed in terms of race. The half breed that moves from former slave to Negro to quadroon to half breed. And don't forget the red girl. The half breed straps on his light boots to compete in a race. So we are at a race, but we can also sail. The Western turkey shooting draw, old and young, right? After the marksman, the newly come immigrants. So we have an open America going back to when the poet was saying that the doors of the barns are open or something. What is it? The big doors of the country barn stand open and ready, which is stanza 9. So we have immigrants. Then we have an overseer. The overseer is a holdover from the plantation mentality. Gentlemen run for their partners. Dancers, youth lie. Wolverine, Native American squaw. She can sell, so that means she has some kind of licensing, right? Some permit to sell at this big market and race. Connoisseur, that means that's a level different from everyone else in terms of expertise. Deckhands, young sister, clean haired Yankee girl. Usually, Yankee refers to the North, so we are either in the North in stanza 15, or we are in the South, referring to people of the North. The paving man, the canal boy, the conductor, and then now the child is baptized. The convert is making his first professions. So, um, yeah, okay. All right, here's another stanza 15. Another aspect of stanza 15. The regatta, the regatta is spread on the bay. The race is begun. How the white sails sparkle. The drover, watching his drove, sings out to them that would stray. The peddler sweats with his pack on his back. The purchaser higgling about the odd cent. The bride unrumples her white dress. The minute hand of the clock moves slowly. The opium eater reclines with rigid head and just opened lips. The prostitute draggles her shawl, her bonnet bobs on her tipsy and pimpled neck. The crowd laugh at her blackguard oaths. The men jeer and wink to each other. Miserable, I do not laugh at your oaths, nor jeer you. The president holding a cabinet council is surrounded by the great secretaries. On the piazza walk three matrons, stately and friendly, with twinned arms. The crew of the fishmack pack repeated layers of halibut on the hold. The Missourian crosses the plains, toting his wares and his cattle. As the fare collector goes to the train, he gives notice by the jingling of loose change. The floor men are laying the floor, the tenors are tinning the roof, the masons are calling for mortar, in single file, each shouldering his hard pass onward the labors. So, what this is actually, if you focus on this last sentence, it's the laborers. Laborers. The list is about laboring, right? Versus Whitman's choice to be idle. So the drover, the peddler, the purchaser, the bride, the opium eater. Now we have the prostitute, classifications of citizens, the crowd, the men jeer, the president holding the cabinet council for his great secretaries, the piazza walk, three matrons, the crew, the Missourian, which I'm assuming is a boat, the fare collector, he gives notice, the floor men, and single file each show the tenors, the masons. These are all laborers, and this is in contrast to Whitman. Whitman just aimlessly or idly going about his day, his life, his season. Okay, so that's stanza 15, and this is the last. This is the last of stanza 16. I mean 15. Okay, seasons pursuing each other. The indescribable crowd is gathered. It is the fourth of seventh month. What salutes of cannon and small arms. Seasons pursuing each other. The plower plows, the mower mows, and the winter grain falls in the ground. Off on the lakes, the pike fisher watches and waits by the hole in the frozen surface. The stumps stand thick round the clearing. The squatter strikes deep with his axe. Flat boatmen make fast towards dusk near the cottonwood or pecan trees. Coon seekers go through the regions of the Red River or through those drained by the Tennessee or through those of the Arkansas. Torches shine in the dark that hangs on the Chattahoochee or Altamaha. Patriarchs sit at supper with sons and grandsons and great grandsons around them. In walls of adobe and canvas tents, rest hunters and trappers after their day's sport. The city sleeps and the country sleeps. The living sleep for their time. The dead sleep for their time. The old husband sleeps by his wife, and the young husband sleeps by his wife. And these tend inward to me, and I tend outward to them. And such as it is to be of these, more or less I am. And of these, one and all, I weave the song of myself. So, in the midst of all this everyday living, seasons pursuing each other here, where the plower plows, the mows, the winter grains falls to the ground, meaning that seed time and harvest time has to go on. You can't go about um, um, idly wandering about because each season requires its own labor and effort. And then the stumps and thick, the flat boatmen, coon sinkers. This coon sinkers through the regions of the Red River, drained by the Tennessee, or through some of the Arkansas. This is the South, of course. And coon sinkers always refers to masters, the slave master to slave mentality. And so at this time, if they're searching for former slaves, it's likely because uh, they are closer to emancipation, or Emancipation Proclamation is already passed, and so then you still have people who don't know that they have been freed. It passed 1863, but sometimes some people didn't learn about it until 1865. But people who want to continue the system, the slave system, master slave system, they're out trying to trap, right? Because then you'll see the word trapper after their day's sport here. So torches shine in the dark. That's usually a slave master trying to find the slave. Patriarchs sit at the supper with sons and grandsons and great grandsons. So now we're talking about generation. Remember from the beginning, Whitman was talking about his generation. His stanza one, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. So this is this is generational language from the beginning to this stanza 15. And then we have rest hunters and trappers, city sleeps, country sleeps, living sleep for their time, dead sleep for their time. Again, that goes back to seasons, right? That goes back to seasons. The old husband sleeps by his wife, the young husband sleeps by his wife. So standards remain, right, regardless. And these are inward, outward, and all these, and of these, one and all, I weave the song of myself. So myself is still separate from all of everything that's going on in stanza 15. All right, stanza 16, the comparison. Okay, let's look at the comparison. All right, I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, regardless of others, ever regardful of others, maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man, stuffed with the stuff that is coarse and stuffed with the stuff that is fine. One of the nation of many nations, the smallest the same and the largest the same. A southerner soon as a northerner, a planter nonchalant and hospitable down by the Oconee I live, a Yankee bound by my own way ready for trade, my joints the limberest joints of earth on earth, and the sternest joints on earth. A Kentuckian walking the vale of the Elkhorn in my deerskin leggings, a Louisianian, a, a Louisianian or Georgian, a boatman over lakes or bays or along coasts, a Hoosier, Badger, Buckeye, at home on Canadian snowshoes or up in the bush, or with fishermen off Newfoundland, at home in the fleet of ice boats, sailing with the rest and tacking, uh, at home on the hills of Vermont or in the woods of Maine or the Texan ranch, comrade of Californians, comrade of free Northwesterners, loving their big proportions, comrade of Rassman and Coleman, comrade of all who shake hands, and welcome to Drink and Meat. So what we're doing here is, and there's another slide for stanza 16. Let me figure out where it starts. Comes okay. What we're doing here is giving you the America that has now established itself, right? While we're also while the poet is also comparing himself within this discussion. So I am old and young, foolish as much as wise. Okay, old and young, foolish as much as wise. I'm I regard regardless of others, regardful of others. So meaning regardful of others. Maternal as well as paternal, child as well as a man. Stuff with the stuff that is coarse, stuff with the stuff that is fine. One of the nation of many nations, the smallest the same, the largest the same. Southerner, as southerner as soon as northerner. So likely he's living in the south and plans on going to the north. Planter nonchalant, hospital down. I mean hospitable down. Remember that he was hospitable towards the uh, the, the runaway slave. A Yankee bound by my own ready for trade. My joints the limberest joints on earth, sternest joints on earth. A Kentuckian, so Yankee usually refers to the East Coast, uh, New York. Now we're back in the South. Kentuckian, Louisianian, Georgian, a boatman or over lakes or bays, Hoosier, Badger, Buckeye, somewhere like Ohio, probably Midwest. Canadian usually probably refers to Canada, Newfoundland. There's the confirmation. At home in a fleece ice boat, sailing with the rest and tacking. Anyone who understands fishing would know that kind of terminology. Then we're in Vermont, woods of Maine, Texan ranch. Then we have friends of Californians, free Northwesterners, and then we have Rassman Coleman mines, and anyone who shakes and drinks. Right? Welcome to Drink and Meat. So this works more like just a regular contrast, but it's giving you sort of like the established nature of America. Because remember, some of these states like Maine was a part of Massachusetts, I think, and branched off, or Connecticut, but they were not all individual states at the time. And so now he's giving you a list of states that have now established themselves, right? Uh, but this, but I think stanza 16 here is more about geography than anything else, as well as comparison. All right, this is the rest of stanza 16. A learner with the simplest, a teacher of the thoughtfulest, a novice beginning yet experient of myriads of seasons. Of every hue and caste am I, of every rank and religion. A farmer, mechanic, artist, gentleman, sailor, Quaker, prisoner, fancy man, rowdy, lawyer, physician, priest. I resist anything better than my own diversity. Breathe the air, but leave plenty after me. And am not stuck up and am in my place. The moth and the fish eggs are in their place. The bright suns I see and the dark suns I cannot see are in their place. The palpable is in its place and the impalpable in its place. So again, it still goes back to the comparison. I think also there's a learner with the simplest, a teacher of the thoughtfulest, right? A novice yet experience of myriads of seasons. So I've gone through every season. Even though I'm a novice of some things, I've experienced seasons, however. Of every hue and cast, I embody every hue and cast, every rank and religion. And I have been this list of things here. He sort of lists this, or this is listed in his biography. And then what I wanted to know is I resist anything better than my own diversity. My diversity of experience, my diversity of thought, my diversity of understanding is much more important than just everybody else's thoughts about myself. So use of diversity, diverse, variety. Um, Also, I am not stuck up. Am in my place. In some ways, he may be saying, I know my place. I know I can learn and I can teach. I'm a novice, but I have different seasons, experiences, right? But I also know what my place is, and in this season of life, or this life in a new America, or this life just in general, or just the earthly experience, right? So trying to see if there's anything else that I want to add here. Diversity is also interesting because it is also the being diverse is the practice or quality of including, involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds, genders, sexual orientation. So that's sort of like a common, that's more or less a common understanding, or a today modern understanding of diversity. Um, but I resist anything better than my own diversity. So me myself, I'm diverse. So I have every right to pursue my own diversity and loaf about and lauder about and ramble about, so I understand what my diversity is. So that's stanza 16. All right, stanza 17, the derivative. And we all know that something that derives from something, meaning that it derives from something that's original. So remember, in the beginning of the um, um, semester, the overview information for American literature, where I discussed how American literature is a derivative of British literature or English literature. So this is a very short stanza. These are really the thoughts of all men in all ages and lands. They are not original to me. If they are not yours as much as mine, they are nothing or next to nothing. If they are not the riddle and the untying of the riddle, they are nothing. If they are not just as close as they are distant, they are nothing. This is the grass that grows wherever the land is and the water is. This is the common air that bathes the globe. So we have multiple references to previous stanzas. So these are the thoughts of all men and all ages. So this is what is common to men in all ages and lands and all seasons of life. And in other words, they do not belong to me. I do not originate. I didn't create these thoughts. They are not original to me. They are my thoughts, or a derivative of original thought. If they're not yours as much as mine, they're nothing. So if you don't claim this understanding that they are derivative, then they are nothing. If they're not the riddle and untying of the riddle, they are nothing. If they are not close as they are distant, they are nothing. This is the grass, right? Remember the question with the child. The child asks in stanza 6. A child said, "What is the grass? Fetching it to me with full hands." This is the grass that grows wherever the land is and the water is, right? Remember that the grass in stanza 6 is that everyone has access to the grass. Everyone, it doesn't belong to one person. That it grows among black folks as among white folks. It is, you can find it in Canuck, Takahu, Congressman Cuff. He receives the same. There's the grass of the graves, right? The uncut hair of the graves. Um, the grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers. So this is the grass that grows wherever the land is and the water is. This is the common air that bathes the globe. So while you are looking for the new and the best and the perfect and the revolution, actually everything is common, and it's common air that bathes the globe. And so while you're looking for new, you're missing the history. That all history, everything that we learn derives from somewhere else. We did not originate the knowledge, we did not originate the understanding. We can interpret it and get a better understanding, but it does not originate with us. And that's what he's basically saying here. So let's go to stanza 18. All right, stanza 18 is about the failure. Okay, with music strong, I come with my cornets and my drums. I play not marches for accepted visitors only. I play marches for conquered and slain persons. Have you heard that it was good to gain the day? I also say it is good to fall. Battles are lost in the same spirit in which they are won. I beat and pound for the dead. I blow through my embouchures by loudest and gayest for them. Vivas to those who have failed, and to those whose war vessels sank in the sea, and to those themselves who sank in the sea, and to all generals that lost engagements, and all overcome heroes, and the numberless unknown heroes equal to the greatest heroes on uh, the greatest heroes known. So he's pushing for failure. He's saying sometimes you need to be glad that you fail. When he says, "Have you heard that it was a good day to gain the day?" That there's nothing wrong with advancing, right, and gaining as you continue to advance. But it could also be useful for you to fall. Battles are lost in the same spirit in which they are won. I beat and pound for the dead. Vivas to those who have failed. Because when you fail, if you continue to gain, you're not really learning. But if you fail, you are learning on some level. I don't think that you have to fail something to learn, but when you do fail, like in you fail a class, you are more inclined to study that subject matter better or stronger or more consistently so you don't fail again. So even though you can gain the day, you gain the day by war, you gain the day by advancing, right? All these industrial revolutions, everyone is getting ahead, etc. Sometimes through war, marches, conquered, slain persons, etc. But a battle can also, battles are lost in the same spirit in which they are won. So you can still win if you fail. I know it sounds weird, but you can still win if you fail because he says the numberless unknown heroes equal to the greatest heroes known. So they are just as important as the ones who we know. The ones who we don't know, who have fallen into the sea, they have sank in the sea. We don't know who they are. They are still just as important as the ones that we know, the ones who gained the day, right? The ones who lost, vivas to those who fail, the ones who sank in the sea, they are still just as important as the ones um, who we know. All right, so that stanza 18. All right, let's look at stanza 19, the invitation. Okay, this is the meal equally set. This the meat for natural hunger. It is for the wicked just the same as the righteous. I make appointments with all, or when I have a single person slighted or left away. The kept woman, sponsor, thief are hereby invited. The heavy lipped slave is invited. The venerally is invited. There should be no difference between them and the rest. This is the press of a bashful hand, this the float and odor of hair. This the touch of my lips to yours, this the murmur of yearning, this the far off depth and height, reflecting my own face, this the thoughtful merge of myself and the outlet again. Do you guess I have some intricate purpose? Well, I have, for the 4 month showers have, and the mica on the side of a rock has. Do you take it I would astonish? Does the daylight astonish? Does the earth early restart twittering through the woods? Do I astonish more than they? This hour I tell things in confidence I might not tell everybody, but I will tell you. So this is the invitation. Remember the doors of and stanza stanza 9. The big doors of the country born stand open and ready, right, for harvest time. Okay, so the invitation here is that all of us are invited to stay here, be here. There should be no difference between them and the rest. So the heavy lipped slave is invited, the kept woman, sponger, thief, whatever category the person is, that person is invited. And I would not have a single person slighted or left away. So think about a person, everyone is invited to a group, but then the person who is inviting all the people to the group is trying to keep another person away, trying to keep that person out of the group. He's saying, I'm not going to have anybody slighted. I'm not going to have anybody offended and slighted away. And so, with this, I think the most important thing is there should be no difference. Even though he points out difference right throughout this, and that's just to show you the characteristics of different types of characters, the listing, things like that. He's saying ultimately there should be no difference between them and the rest. That the invitation is for all. Okay. All right. All right. The last stanza is stanza 20, the citizenship argument. Okay. And there's another slide after this one. So who goes there? Hankering, gross, mystical, nude. How is it I extract strength from the beef I eat? What is a man anyhow? What am I? What are you? All I mark as my own, you shall offset with your own. Else it were time lost listening to me. I do not snivel that snivel the world over, that months are vacuums in the ground but wallow and filth, whimpering and truckling fold with powders for invalids. Conformity goes to the fourth removed. I wear my hat as I please, indoors or out. Why should I pray? Why should I venerate and be ceremonious? Having pried through the strata, analyzed to a hair, counseled with doctors and calculated close, I find no sweeter fat than sticks to my own bones. In all people I see myself, none more and not one a barley corn less. And the good or bad I say of myself, I say of them. I know I am solid and sound. The reason why I say this is the citizenship argument, because it goes back to this statement here. I wear my hat as I please, indoors or out. And there's a lot that goes on in this. Um, there's a word offset here, right? Um, but I want to stick with, and all of these rhetorical questions that you see here: who goes there hankering? How is it? Is it I extract strength from the beef I eat? Um, but the most important thing I think here is I wear my hat as I please, indoors or out. So it whatever you say about me really doesn't, at the end of the day, really doesn't matter. How I run my life, by the hat I wear, the clothes that I wear, the understanding that I have, the people I talk to, the talkers, the trappers, the people I want to show hospitality to, uh, the racial classifications, the immigrant classifications, how I believe in idleness, how I want to roam the earth and be idle and loiter and take in the whole earth. I wear my hat as I please, indoors or out. To me, that's a citizenship argument because it goes back to I know I am solid and sound. Um, that I can, as a citizen, I can live and do and act how I please. That's why I call this a citizenship argument. Let's look at the last few lines. I mean, the last of the stanza. All right. To me, the converging objects of the universe perpetually flow. All are written to me, and I must get what the writing means. I know I am deathless. I know this orbit of mine cannot be swept by a carpenter's compass. I know I shall not pass like a child's carlicue cut with a burnt stick at night. I know I am August. I do not trouble my spirit to vindicate itself or be understood. I see that the elementary laws never apologize. I reckon I behave no prouder than the level I plant my house by, after all. I exist as I am, that is enough. If no other in the world be aware, I sit content. And if each and all be aware, I sit content. One world is aware and by far the largest to me, and that is myself. And whether I come to my own today or in 10,000 or 10 million years, I can cheerfully take it now, or with equal cheerfulness I can wait. My foothold is tenant and mortisant and granite. I laugh at what you call disillusion, and I know the amplitude of time. So again, this goes back to the citizenship argument. I do not trouble my spirit to vindicate itself or be understood. I see that the elementary laws never apologize. So the elementary laws are historical, so they're not going to apologize for maybe getting it wrong, or our interpretation of it has changed, right? And then if no other, and if each and all be aware, I sit content. See, one world, and he refers to himself as a world. One world is aware and by far the largest to me, and that is myself, a song of myself. And I think I laugh at what you call dissolution, right? So the critics are saying that his idleness is probably like a form of disillusion or something like that, right? But the most important aspect of this, in terms of the citizenship argument, the first slide under 20, I wear my hat as I please, indoors or out. I do not trouble my spirit to vindicate itself or be understood. And if each and all be aware, I sit content. One world is aware, and by far the largest to me, and that world is myself. I laugh at what you call disillusion. So that's the reason why I wanted to only focus on um, um, the first 20 stanzas, because the whole idea was to get at the heart of his response to his critics. The rest of the stanzas, 21 through 52, still address the critics, but this is the one that I feel like there's more 20, there is more that you can gain from this in terms of how we think about our lives today. All right, so that's the end of the discussion of the first 20 stanzas. All right, so here's some resources, research archives, and educational information. So Walt Whitman Birthplace Association website, then research archives list of links you can find on that website. Some are good links and some are not. So I added a Walt Whitman archive link here, and then of course the source pig. All right. Thank you very much for listening.